everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here. The DRF race of the day for Wednesday, July the 31st is race number 8 at Saratoga. Let's throw up the field for the De La Rose Stakes. We're going a mile on the inner turf. These are fillies and mares which have not won a graded stake in 2024. There are graded stakes winners in this race, however, most notably the number 2, Evie Jets, a multiple graded stakes winner who won the Boston Spa here last year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, she's getting some pretty significant class relief here too, Dan. They tried her in a couple of grade ones recently, and it, didn't quite work out. Those races are a little too tough for her. This race is not too tough for her, and her good race. If she runs it here, she's going to be a handful.
The other 2 graded / group winners in the field are the 7 Immensitude, the 10 Midnight Mile. They've won their group stakes overseas. Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector. We're going a 2-turn mile at the Spa. Evie Jets likes to be forwardly placed. Didn't get to the front last time out in the Diana. I think maybe going a mile and an eighth. They didn't want to be too aggressive with her. Spirit and Glory, though, has shown speed recently, and ever since she started utilizing that speed, she's been pretty effective.
Yeah, hasn't really had too many fast paces to deal with, Dan, but they have been going forward with her. The 2 favorites, the pace projector believes will be, right up front early in here. That's difficult to argue with. I do think if Hot Fudge is going to try turf again in here, I'd be kind of surprised if Kendra Carmouche wasn't out there looking for the early lead.
I would have to agree with you. Hot Fudge stretching out, switching surfaces with the sprint speed to make the lead. We'll talk a little bit about her in a bit, but we will start with a horse that's likely to come from off of the pace, and that's the number 1, 5 Towns, going out for Graham Motion. I thought she looked good winning that synthetic start 3 starts back. The Dahlia, she couldn't have won that race any easier down at Laurel, where she was just bottled up. It looked like once she got to the outside, she was going to run by those horses, and she did willingly. And then last time in the Gallarette, she caught Fluffy Socks, who's a graded stakes caliber horse, over a soft turf course. Her buyers are a little bit light. I still think there's something here at 30-1.
I agree. I mean, listen, if you're just going to handicap by figures, you're probably not going to like her too much. If you're going to sort of look at some other things, she's a little interesting, especially at 30-1. I really like her form. I get it. She didn't run that well last time, but she was never going to beat Fluffy Socks, I don't think. And it was soft turf. So I'd be willing to just make some excuses for it. And 30-1, I'm using this horse.
Hot Fudge is the number 2. Now, she has won at a mile, a 1-turn mile on dirt, but she's been primarily a sprinter for the majority of her career. She's tried turf twice, both sprint races. It hasn't worked out for her. I'm not sure if a 2-turn turf route against some good turf horses is really going to be her cup of tea, but she should show speed in this spot. I'm curious as to your assessment of her recent dirt races. Do you think maybe she was sort of tailing off form a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I actually feel like she's run really well in her recent starts, and things just haven't quite really worked to her advantage in those races. I'm a big Hot Fudge fan, Dan. She's an underrated horse. I don't think I'm going to like her switching to turf for this race. I'm certainly not going to bet her in here. Her turf races that she's run so far, they're okay, but I don't think they're nearly as good as her dirt form. There is a chance of some rain here early in the week at Saratoga, and obviously she'll be in a great spot here if this race is off the turf.
In Spirit and Glory, the number 3, won a 2-turn mile stakes race at Aqueduct. That was the Plenty of Grace back in April. Then she ran really well in the Bogey when being nipped. And here's her most recent start, the Eatontown at Monmouth. And really no excuses here. She went 25-3 for the opening quarter, 51 for the half, and she's still going to be run down and finished 3rd. It was a good field. The horse that ran 4th came back to place in the grade 3 matchmaker with a 95 buyer, but those were really soft fractions and she couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I didn't love that performance. Did get run over by a couple of Chad Brown horses at the end. Make of that what you will. Her overall form is good, Dan. You've already sort of referenced this since they started going forward with her in her races. Her form's picked up a little bit. She can get the right trip here. She can win. I kind of prefer other horses. She's the morning line favorite. I think the morning line favorite should be Evie Jets, and I prefer that horse.
Pocamucha is the number 4, and she'll be making her first start off of about a 7-month layoff for trainer Bill Mott. We haven't seen her since she ran in the Swanee River at Gulfstream Park, and she just didn't do much that day. That bounced around a little bit going into the first turn, but never picked up her feet afterwards when trying to rally into a slow pace. She still has to prove herself at the stakes level, and what concerns me is her races without Lasix have not been good.
I don't like that about her either, and I'm concerned about that, Dan. She does have a top race, though, that will give her some kind of chance in here if she can catch a little bit of pace and a clean trip into it. And it's also worth noting that they've run her at Saratoga the last 2 years. She runs really well up here.
Sister Luann is up next, going out for Safi Joseph, who sent out some really live horses in Saratoga, obviously, this meet. Nice win last time out. Third level allowance at Churchill Downs. Thought she got a decent setup. I thought that pace was pretty solid for the level, and she came with a good run to win. It was nice to see her come back off a short layoff, fresh and ready to fire, and she's tactical enough that she's pace adaptable.
Yeah, I just like that they sort of took a step back with her last time and let her get back on track. They tried to go long with her. They tried synthetic with her, sort of before that little layoff, and it felt like maybe she was heading the wrong way. They got her back on track last time. She's very tactical too. I think there's a good trip coming for her in here. I mean, I don't love her, but I would hardly be shocked if she ran a good one here and was in the mix late.
The number 6, Mufi, is a stakes winner, but she's earned a couple of graded stakes placings in her career as well. She got back to the listed ranks last time out on the perfect sting. Frankie Dettori was aboard for this race, and Mufi scored in last to first fashion. She saved ground at the back, swung widest into the stretch. Midnight Mile, you see sort of in behind horses in the white cap. And Frankie does a pretty good job of herding Midnight Mile in. Midnight Mile is going to get out and sort of bump Mufi's rear quarters right there, but Frankie race road to perfection here.
Absolutely. He did everything right there. And maybe it made the difference, although Mufi is just under a strong hand right here at the end of this race. I like this performance from her, Dan. She was only second best in those graded races out in California earlier this year. I thought she ran well in both of those starts as well. I like her sort of tactical running style. I don't think we've necessarily seen her best race yet, perhaps. But there was plenty to get behind with this horse.
The number 7 is Immensitude. This filly earned a group stakes win in France 3 starts back. That was her final start as a 3-year-old. Now she's come to the States for trainer Bill Mott. I liked her seasonal debut at Keeneland. I thought all in all it was a pretty good trip behind a solid pace, but I thought she was staying on at the end in the manner of horse that might have needed the race. And I just think last time out she didn't like that yielding turf course at all.
Yeah, I was going to give her that pass too for the yielding ground. Then also just the fact that Churchill turf course can be just really quirky. Some horses really don't like it, so I'm just not going to care about that. I'm with you. I thought her stateside debut was pretty good. Briefly blocked there behind the 1-2 finishers in the stretch, but she ran on. I thought it was a good performance in a race she might have needed. I mean, a stakes winner at over 40-1 in France, Dan. So she was kind of a surprise at one point, but after that win, she just got better and better and better. The Group 3 win before she left, she was much the best that day.
Be My Sunshine, the number 8's a long shot I want to use. Another Safi Joseph trainee. I think her form could be dirtied up a little bit. Her last start was down at Churchill Downs. She got wired in a very slow-paced race. I'm not really interested in that. The race before that, she caught yielding ground at Churchill. Again, you mentioned that the Churchill turf course can be a little funky. And again, I don't think she really cared for all of that given it. And 3 starts back in the Honey Fox, well, it didn't look like a good effort. She was probably overmatched against Chili Flag, who's one of the better turf fillies and mares in the country when she's right. Her form before that was good.
I agree with that. Her form before that was good. I don't know if those races necessarily make her like a major contender in here, but they'll give her some kind of a chance. And I really like how tactical she is. That she's super handy. She gets good trips in her races. You know, those last 2 starts after the layoff, they're not great, but they're not terrible performances. I can see her taking a step forward here.
Evie Jet's the number 9, multiple graded stakes winner, dropping out of the Diana. And last time out, the Diana probably a bit too tough. She tried to push the pace early. The pace was set by White Beam, and she just couldn't keep up with that horse in the stretch. Her race 2 starts back in the Just a Game was a really good performance against tough competition. She has all the figures, and with her tactical speed, she's likely going to be right squarely in the thick of things when they turn for home.
That's one of the good things about her. I mean, if the pace doesn't develop, she'll just go to the front. But if it does, she's really handy and is very comfortable sitting behind horses. I just feel like she ran fine in those 2 grade 1s recently. Then she's just not really that kind of a horse. She is definitely this kind of a horse. I don't know. I just felt like she was the horse to beat. We'll see if she holds her form here after 2 really tough races against good horses.
And completing the field is Chad Brown's number 10, Midnight Mile, a group stakes winner in England as a 2-year-old. She's had 2 runs now in the States. I think she probably needed one in the Plenty of Grace when wired by Spirit and Glory. And then last time out in the Perfect Sting, we saw that she was compromised a little bit in upper stretch before finding the split and then running second to Mufi. She's going to have to deal with a tough outside post, but she's a consistent sort.
Yeah, right. Those first 2 starts over here, they're fine. I mean, you can certainly make excuses for both of those efforts, and she was pretty good. I mean, I didn't think her form was necessarily great as a 3-year-old last year, but man, she was a good 2-year-old. Even her Breeders' Cup as a 2-year when they came over, she ran really well in that race.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Wednesday race of the day. Mike, you're going with Immensitude in here.
Yeah.
Third start in the States for Belmont.
Yeah, I like her form from last year overseas, and I think she's actually run pretty well since she's gotten over here. I liked her stateside debut. This was just the kind of race there where I'm not like, wildly against the favorites in here, but I don't love them. I didn't feel like I had to bet one of those horses. I wanted a price.
Curious to see if Mufi can make it back to back for Frankie Dettori. I thought last time was a pretty strong finish, even though she might have gotten a better trip than the runner-up. I think she'll kick on late. 69310 for me, 7196 for Mike. In the Delarose Wednesday's race of the day, it's at the Spa. Good luck.